Hey, what's up, you guys? You got to check out this episode. So my boy, Sam Tejada, and I just got done filming an episode together. You may have seen our other episode that we recorded when I was on his podcast, A Healthy Point of View in Florida. But Sam is an absolute baller. He's the founder and CEO of a company called Liquivida, which is a liquid IV company. They have 30 locations all over the US. And what's super cool, he's also written a book, and he's all about collaboration, even with his competitors. So Sam, to say he has a knowledge of business, to say he has a knowledge of leadership and impact on government is something that I would not take lightly. So Sam and I sat down, we had an epic conversation here on the Profitable Chiro Network, and you got to check it out. There are some absolute bombs that he drops that you got to see. Check it out now. So you went from firefighter to founder of a business that has over 30 locations all over the US. What was the biggest mindset shift for you from being in like the service of people and industry to having what I would call like starting to build the empire on the other side? What's been the biggest shift?
You know, I've always had that entrepreneurial mindset, right, since I was a kid. So I had a business prior to Liquivida in the health safety business, doing like CPR, first aid training and stuff. So I always had that entrepreneurship mindset. But the biggest mindset shift from being a firefighter paramedic to a clinic owner, right, was the type of medicine that we are practicing.
So
right?
good. Yeah.
So going from that traditional emergency medicine where it's very reactive to something that's more proactive, where people actually start taking care of their health. Right. And what happened is, you know, for the years that I worked in the fire department, I got to see people from their initial journey of being sick.
Yep.
Right. All the way till the day, a lot of them until they died. And I saw how our traditional medical system was just consistently failing people one after the other. And on my days off, you know, firemen, we work 24 hours on them. We're off for 48 hours. So everybody has some kind of side hustle. So I started working with a doctor, Dr. Robert Willix, who was a former heart surgeon who went into the longevity space, world-renowned guy. He was my mentor since I was 19 years old in the functional medicine space. And I was seeing him practice medicine completely different. His patients were not actually like mine, where I got to them when they had their acute illness.
Yep.
He was getting people standing on their last leg, right? People with end-stage cancer, people with autoimmune diseases, all kinds of chronic illnesses. And what I started seeing him reverse the disease, right? Instead of getting, you know, sicker and sicker.
Yep.
So when I started seeing that over and over and over, but then I started seeing the patients in emergency medicine just get sicker and sicker, more medications, and then them dying.
Yeah.
I says, okay, well, I'm on the wrong side of medicine. And then that's where I decided, I says, you know what, I got to go all in, because my God-given purpose, I thought it was being a hero as a firefighter paramedic, but it really wasn't. It's where I'm at today.
Oh, so that's so interesting, because I don't think most people would put their mind in the place of like, you're the first line of the medical system in a lot of ways,
right,
as a firefighter. So I never even thought of that perspective of like, even though people would be like, no, it's service. No, that's like the first line in medicine, which is really good. And I love that you pointed out this proactive. So I'm curious for you personally, what is one belief that had to die for Liquivida to be born?
You know, I got kind of stuck in this mindset that you had to have a full-time job.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Coming from, as an immigrant from Dominican Republic, you know, and my parents wanting to have that stability, you know, financial stability, where once I actually had that government job with, you know, a pension, all the health benefits, you know, everything you could think of, most people would look at it as like, this guy's good,
Yep.
you know, especially starting at 20 years old. Yeah, I'm one of the guys who can retire early by age 42 and collect a pension for the rest of my life. So I just had to get out of that mindset, knowing that I can't be stuck in that bubble. You know, there's bigger and better for me that's out there.
Yeah. So good, man. We're going to transition a little bit. I want to ask you about the book, right? So How to Win in Modern Wellness. My biggest question for you is this, is if you had to distill it down to like a one line, this is the takeaway for entrepreneurs, what would it be? Relationships. Tell me more.
So everything's about relationships.
Yep.
And as a matter of fact, on the way here to the podcast, I was just talking to Dr. Davis about, you know, certain relationships in business, because, you know, we access so many relationships when we're moving around, and you start to get to see like how people move around, right? And you start seeing, are they moving in the same way that you're moving?
Yeah.
You know, are they respecting the relationships? What are they doing? And really, when you start respecting the relationships you have in business. And what I mean by that is everything from your relationships with your employees, with your business partners, relationships with your vendors, relationships with people in the governing boards, all of that stuff. And you build off those relationships. That's where more greater, bigger opportunities start to present themselves.
Yep.
And you'll see it happen. I mean, that's how I got where I'm at today, is by building relationships. It's not by, someone stroking me a check or me stroking other people a check. It's by just really connecting with people, figuring out what I have to offer, not being that person who goes around just wanting to take from someone.
Yep.
My father would always tell me, you can't receive with a closed hand.
Yeah, no doubt.
And really that's what relationships is all about. Figure out how you can give to others. And listen, the universe has a certain way. God will bless you and bring the right opportunities to you.
So good, man. Amen. And dude, I'll tell you in a lot of ways, like you challenge me, because sometimes I like to stay in my bubble. So your book and even you guys being down here right now, sometimes I'm just like, no, I'm just going to stay in my normal routine. But it's like you said, it's about relationships. What do you think entrepreneurs specifically, and we could go even into the wellness space to be a little bit more niche specific, what do you think that they underestimate about relationships the most?
I think the biggest part that people underestimate is the ability to actually get outside, right? Yeah. What do I mean by that? What happens is we tend to get stuck in the cave. The cave is being inside of your clinic, right? Yeah. And the thing is, customers are not going to come from inside of your clinic. Yeah, there's word of mouth and whatnot.
Yep.
But one thing I learned early on is you have to work on the business, not in the business. Mm-hmm. Early on, yes, you have to work in the business, make sure you establish the company culture, make sure you establish, how the SOPs and protocols and the processes work within your business. But ultimately, you have to get out there,
yep.
right? If you want to do some really big things, you have to get out of that cave and work on the business, not in the business.
I love it. Do you think there's a mentality that holds a lot of people back from doing that?
Yeah, people being scared. People want to be comfortable, right? And that's one thing that you have to. Growth comes when you're uncomfortable.
Yep.
And I listen, till today, I got to remind myself, I'll tell you, last year, we have our conference called the Vibe Conference, and a group of the different CEOs that are part of the association, we were talking about who's going to be the MC of the event. It's a 2 to 3 day event. And they asked me to do it. And I said no.
Wow.
And, after that call, that meeting that we had, it was a Zoom call, I went back to my wife and I says, I don't know why I said no, because I'm really trying to grow my brand, my personal brand. And I said no because I was uncomfortable. But you grow when you're uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So guess what I did? I got back on a call with all those CEOs and says, I'm doing it.
Come on.
And I did it.
So
I did it. And I think I did a pretty good job. This upcoming year, I'll do better.
That's the game though, right? It's you're just like, I do it and I keep getting better.
Right.
Is there on a more tactical side, is there anything that you do specifically that helps you break that discomfort? Because I'm the same way, where it's a lot of times, whether it's raising fees or hiring somebody or moving into a new space or whatever the thing is, I think a lot of people get stuck and they're like, oh, I can't. But do you have, or because they're scared, do you have any specific tactical stuff that you use where you're like, nah, this is how I'm gonna break that fear?
Yeah. So I tap in through prayer,
yep.
right? I speak, directly with the Holy Spirit that lives within me.
Man. Yeah,
but one of the things is when you're speaking through prayer, you learn how to speak to yourself
yep.
as well too.
Yep.
You got to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and talk to yourself and say, hey, this is not the version that I want to see. I want to see a greater, better version than what this is. And when you have that ability to communicate with yourself, and back in the day when you'd watch one of these TV shows like Family Matters or whatever. Yep. You remember somebody be sitting down, you got the little angel here, the little devil here. So that's kind of the way I look at it. It's like, you don't want that little demon devil there. Yeah. You want the angel speaking all the positivity for you to be able to elevate and grow. So that's one thing that I do very, very well with myself is I have the ability to communicate with myself, challenge myself. And you can only do that when you have the proper communication
yep.
with thyself.
Come on.
Yeah.
So good. I hope everybody gets that. So important.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to change gears just a little bit. So we know we're in the wellness space, right? So there's every peptide, PRP, IVs, red lights, lasers, chiropractic, acupuncture, you get all of it, right? For you, I'm curious to know top 3 that are not just hype, that are like the real deal in the wellness space?
Man, I keep it simple with mine, man.
Yeah.
You know, you do have all of these different alternative treatments and stuff, which are a huge plus.
For sure.
But it's not affordable for everybody.
Yeah.
I try to keep it very simple, man. Movement, move your body,
Yeah.
right? Exercising is part of moving your body. But if you can't exercise, just move your body. You like to garden? Go garden for 20 to 30 minutes consistently.
Come on.
Get your steps in.
Yeah.
Right? Nutrition.
Yep.
What you're fueling your body with is extremely important.
Yep.
You know, a lot of people want to say eating healthy is expensive. I've cracked the code. It's not expensive. I bet you that I can show you how to eat whole foods, right, cheaper than eating McDonald's.
Come on.
I've done it. It's on my Instagram page. Go look at the video.
Let's go.
And then number 3, sleep.
Yep.
You know, that's where your body recovers. So you got to get good sleep. You got to prepare your body to go to sleep. So you're well rested and your body can perform the next day.
So good. If you had to say of those 3, which one has the biggest ROI?
Sleep. Sleep.
You want to say anything else about it? And like, let's go this route. Give me for you is like, what do you do to optimize your sleep?
So first, I prepare myself to go to sleep.
Yep.
Right. So part of me preparing myself to go to sleep is what state my body is in before I, decide to go to sleep.
Yeah.
I don't eat 3 hours before going to sleep. Right. So my body's not focused on digesting that food, and then my heart rate is elevated. Mm-hmm. It prevents me to go into that deep sleep quick enough. I reduce any kind of blue light exposure.
Yep.
Right. I do have some red filters. I have the red glasses as well too to kind of reduce that.
Yeah.
Let my body really wind down at night. And then, I do take my certain supplements and whatnot to make sure that I'm optimizing my body with the right nutrition, vitamins, minerals, amino acids. And one thing I don't do is I don't wake up to an alarm clock. I'm a firm believer.
Okay.
Once I retired from the fire department, I says, I am not waking to anything that's going to just disrupt my sleep out of nowhere.
Yep.
So I wake up when my body tells me to wake up. So, it's worked for me. I usually sleep about 4.5 to 5 hours. Most people think that's kind of crazy. But I'm waking up when my body tells me to wake up. I don't have a midday crash.
Yep.
I have 1 cup of coffee in the morning. I do my bulletproof coffee with my MCT oil and things of that nature. But yeah, that's pretty much my sleep pattern is that. I do track. I'm big into data, tracking your health and wellness data. So I use an Oura Ring to see what my readiness score is, how was my REM cycle, and all of my other sleep data as well too. And then from there, it gives me the ability to measure how that sleep was for that night.
Yep.
And then if I have to tweak things, I'll tweak them accordingly. So I do think that I typically only get about 5 hours of sleep, probably because my body's recovering from all the other biohacking and wellness things that I'm doing.
Sure.
Everything from supplementation, doing my red light, doing my infrared sauna.
Yep.
All of those things allow my body to recover a little bit quicker as well. So
No doubt. Man, powerful. What's the number one thing that you think messes up people's sleep?
Stress.
Yep.
Man, that stress is just like when your mind is just going and going and going. And this is one other thing that I didn't talk about for me to prepare to sleep is meditation. So I do guided meditation. I have a brain tap device. I travel with it. I also travel with my Pulsetto, which is a vagus nerve reset.
Yep.
So that stress is that thing will keep you, especially when you're a business owner, your mind's just going like mine.
Yeah.
That thing will keep you up all night.
Come on.
Yeah.
So good. So good. All right. You scaled to 30 locations plus, right? What is one thing that almost broke the model?
Franchisees.
Oh, that goes back to relationships, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Give me more, man. Like what's like if I legitimately want to learn, because we're kind of to this point where it's like, all right, we got to look at scaling outside of me just being here in this business. So give me if you're going to lay it on me and say like, hey bro, here's how you grow this thing where I don't have to be in every office. What's the advice you would give me?
Well, you got to be able to delegate, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to find people that can be a successor, train them, and make sure that you can basically create that successor, someone who can replicate who you are, right?
Yeah.
They won't be exactly who you are as an individual, but if they can really push out what your beliefs are, what your core values are, and bring the company culture to the other locations, if it's franchisees or partnerships, that's good. Now, I say franchisees is because this is my first time ever going into the franchise business, so you learn a lot. It's not like just having
totally
one clinic
game,
or two.
Right?
Dude. What's happening is you're bringing in so many different people with different personalities, people who can afford franchises, that they're typically people that have retired from a different business. So they think they know your business better than what you do. So it's a huge learning curve. And sometimes, the learning is on both ends, on their end and also your end. And sometimes it's like, it doesn't even mesh, So now you got to figure out how to get out of this mess of a mesh that you've been trying to mesh. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
So, and listen, you'll have some successful franchisees. I remember early on, we had a very successful franchisee making over $500,000 in revenue per month. So think about that, collecting 6% royalties on that. That's nice.
Yep.
But then they start doing other things that are not compliant, right, per the franchise agreement, things that now you have to actually cancel the franchise agreement, and now you're litigating at the federal court, 3 years of going back and forth, depositions, cross-examination, all of that stuff. So now that brings a whole nother level of stress where you can't even focus, how I said before, on the business, right? Because now you're in the business, focus on all this litigation stuff. So franchisees is not the easiest thing to deal with. Not saying that you can't be successful with it, but it's a journey.
Yeah, well, dude, that's what I always tell the chiros I coach. I'm like, people are the wild card, always.
Yeah.
But they're important, like you said. There's a relationship. So I have one last question for you, and then we'll talk about where everybody can find you. Is that cool?
Cool.
This is my favorite question. So 10 years from now, what would have to be true to say that you truly impacted the entire wellness space, not just grew a successful business?
Sam Tejada is spreading the word on health, wellness, and medicine across the world, bringing it to the masses. The masses includes not just the very affluent individuals, but across the board to the minority community. Me being the face of the industry as well. If I could see that 10 years from now, being a big part in legislation, changing a lot of the different things that are happening that are antiquated, that are old school. Dr. Davis says this says it quite often. He says science is 25 years ahead of where it really should be. You got to think about it. When people get trained in medicine, they're being trained on things that were researched and studied so many years ago. When is the curriculum actually going to change? So we have to close that gap, right? There's so many things that are out there that are really changing the course of medicine that are not being talked about, that are not being implemented. Finally now we're getting nutrition into the actual medical system, where it's actually part of the requirements to take the test that they have to take. And it's interesting. I was actually in D.C. with Dr. Oz, with RFK Jr., and they were talking about that just a few weeks ago, and just understanding what it took to get there, right? Where they had to bring the accreditation committee for the medical schools. They had to bring the actual schools themselves, and it was 3 different parties because they were all blaming themselves of why it's not part of the curriculum. And what it came down to is that the nutrition course did not feed into. It wasn't a requirement for the testing.
Yeah, for sure.
So what they ended up doing, they finally all got together. They put everybody around the table, and they made it happen. So these are the things that we need to challenge ourselves if we really want to see that change in the course of medicine. And I want to be part of that. I'm the guy who's going to move around, connect with the right people to make sure those type of things happen.
Well, you're clearly doing it. And bro, to hear some of your heart and your vision is just like, it's an honor to have you here. Honor to be able to sit here and have a conversation with you and build the relationship like you talked about. Where can my people who hear this find you? Give them all the ways.
So you can find us on our website, liquivida.com, samtejada.com. You'll find a lot of my personal stuff of me moving around and doing a lot of community work as well. And if you just want to research about me, go to Google and type in Sam Tejada, and you'll see everything that pops up.
And check out Sam's podcast, A Healthy Point of View. Dude, you just have the best people on. And like every week it's just somebody new, a different perspective.
Oh, yeah.
And you really, I got to just say, one of the things I appreciate about you is getting to know you just a little bit more. You genuinely care about just getting all the different perspectives and getting that healthy point of view. So I have no doubt in my mind that 10 years from now, that vision will come to fruition. So Sam, I love you, bro. Appreciate you being on, man.
Thank you, brother.
All right, fam. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.